Now, just a brief introduction to NovoEd for those of you who are not familiar with us. NovoEd offers a collaborative learning platform that enables organizations to design and deliver experiential learning that accelerates business performance really at a global scale. Since our founding at the Stanford Social Algorithms Lab in 2012, a wide array of institutions and organizations, including global corporations, executive education providers, and training firms have utilized our platform. They've developed high-quality training that incorporates things such as purposeful practice and application, coaching and mentorship, and group collaboration into that learning experience. Our approach to learning connects diverse groups of learners, mentors, and leaders in a high-impact online environment, which has driven measurable outcomes for organizations, some of which you've seen, you're able to see here on the right. And now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our guest speaker, Audrey Witters. We've had the distinct pleasure of working with Audrey for 5 or 6 years now, as we've worked with Stanford Graduate School of Business to support their innovative online initiative. We've been able to sort of follow that up close, and it really is a tremendous story, given the direction they chose to move in 6 years ago. It's led to some really unique innovations and I think, really amazing success. I know that Audrey's going to share, a lot of elements of this journey with you during her presentation. Audrey is Managing Director of the Online and Entrepreneurship Executive Education at the Stanford Graduate School of Business. In this role, she's overseen the launch of the flagship Stanford Lead program, which she'll tell you about, as well as multiple other online products, cumulatively reaching thousands of executives each year around the globe. She's worked in higher education since 2002, and with the recent acceleration of social and networking technologies, she sees tremendous opportunities for high-impact social learning. We're very glad to get her insights and the wisdom of her experience during this session. Now, before I hand it over to Audrey, I'd like to run a quick poll, and I'll have it should pop up in your screen here from GoToWebinar. And the question is, how are leadership skills currently being developed in your organization or by your organization? And you can select more than one. You can select among these options. One thing I would ask is that if you do select one of the last two, blended or other, please just put in the chat and share so that the rest of the attendees can see what you are doing in terms of blended or something different, something else. Please do put that in there so that we can be aware of that. All right, I'll give you about 10 or 15 more seconds to consider this and answer the poll. It looks like we've got already 2/3 of folks responding. All right, let me go ahead and stop the poll and share the results. So here's what we can see. We see, interestingly, about pretty even split. Half of you are indicating that you're teaching and developing leadership skills through virtual instructor-led training or video conferencing, self-paced online courses, but also that you've got in-person training that's on hold. So this is consistent with what we're hearing. People are using different modalities, but also some folks are just not sure if they can use other modalities other than in-person or feel that they can get back to the in-person. We see a nice, nearly 1/3 of folks doing something blended. And, please do check out the chat to hear about what people are doing there. All right, so let me now close this view here. And now I will hand it over to Audrey. Audrey, welcome.
Thank you so much, Charlie, and thank you to everybody who's listening today. I'm really excited to be here and to have the opportunity to share my thoughts and experience with all of you. I want to start off by presenting an overview of executive education at the Stanford Graduate School of Business. So we've been providing members of the business community with GSB faculty-led education for more than 65 years. And we view this as a very important part of the Stanford GSB mission. We offered our first executive education program in 1952, and currently we deliver more than 100 programs educating more than 5,000 global leaders each year. The executives who participate in our programs come from all around the world, representing nearly 100 countries, and they span all kinds of industries and functions. Professionals from more than half of the Fortune 500 and actually more than 3/4 of the Fortune 100 have participated in our programs at some point during the last 5 years. Most of our participants come to us with more than 10 years of work experience. Most are at a director level or above within their organization, and most of them hold advanced degrees. In addition to being leaders in executive education, we also strive to be innovators as well. One area of innovation where we focused in recent years, like many of our peers, is in online education. The LEAD business program is our flagship online executive program. It was launched more than 5 years ago in 2015, and we've just enrolled our 12th cohort. The LEAD concept was bold and unique. We wanted to offer an authentic GSB experience in an online format. And to achieve this, we set several very ambitious goals that we worked hard to ensure that we delivered, even though they were somewhat counter to the prevailing mainstream thinking about online education at that time. To start with, rather than being massively open like a MOOC, we wanted to start with a select and diverse cohort. And then we wanted to give this cohort a deep and impactful learning experience, one that was academically rigorous with content from our world-class GSB faculty, one that was immersive, high-touch, and experiential, and one that fostered an interactive community, emphasizing social learning. And then we wanted all of this to result in a meaningful certification. The LEAD program remains a unique offering in the marketplace today, competing successfully with degree-granting EMBA programs because we took this bold path. Today, I'll talk about how we managed to fill that tall order with a learning model that employs personal feedback, social learning, and iterative and situated experiences all coming together to produce a superior impact and superior outcomes for our participants. I also want to share a few other ways we've employed this learning model since we developed it for LEAD. LEAD brings together diverse executives from around the world and offers a flexible curriculum that can meet many different learning goals. Some organizations, though, have come to us and asked us to create customized curriculums based on the LEAD content and the LEAD learning model, but tailored to the specific needs of their audience. So this might look like a 2 or 3 month program focusing on one specific skill, such as design thinking, or it might look like what's depicted here, a year-long program that combines the skills the organization finds are most important to develop in their senior leaders, or anything in between. But regardless, in these programs, we see similar success achieving learning outcomes, again, by employing a learning experience that has personal feedback, meaningful group interaction, and iterative, situated, experiential learning activities. And then also our latest online program launch, which we rolled out just last month, is a suite of on-demand courses. So our on-demand course catalog today includes 4 titles, each offering a deep dive on a specific topic. We have communication, disruption, power, and diversity and inclusion. These courses allow for individual learning, and they're designed for people who need more flexibility, that aren't able to commit to the full LEAD certificate program or able to commit to a live program that requires them to be present at a specific date and time. The on-demand courses all still include personal feedback as well as our learn and apply approach. Again, activities that are situated and experiential. All right, so let's get started with some myths that exist around online learning. A lot of people that I talk to, especially people who are outside of the education space or outside of the L&D function, when they hear online learning, they still think MOOCs. Now, the first MOOC was launched in 2008, and in 2008, this was a top-of-the-line, cutting-edge smartphone. And obviously, we've seen not just incremental improvements in phone technology since 2008, but we've entirely changed how we think about our phones, right? And we've made similarly dramatic improvements and advancements in online learning. But there remains a significant amount of skepticism that's based on the limitations that we had with MOOCs, even though we've moved well beyond those constraints. I'm hoping that today we can dispel some of this mythical thinking, and I hope that I can help you see that the true potential of online learning, and especially online learning for working professionals, is far greater than most people realize. The first myth I want to address is the question of what can be learned online. We've pretty much as a society embraced online learning for a variety of topics that are mostly about knowledge acquisition, things like accounting or computer programming. But then people tend to become a lot more skeptical about whether an online course can teach them the soft skills, which are what's really important for leaders today. So for instance, how to be more effective running meetings, or better motivate your team, or become a better negotiator. These are skills that a lot of people feel just aren't a good fit for online learning. And to understand why, when you look back at the MOOCs, as most of you probably know, the M in MOOC stands for massive. And by massive, to give you an idea, one of the most successful MOOCs was in 2011 when two Stanford professors offered a course in artificial intelligence. And they saw more than 160,000 people register for that course. So what was groundbreaking about MOOCs, right, was that this knowledge could be presented to tens of thousands of people. Everybody could view lectures and complete readings and individually work through these assignments all at the same time, and this worked very, very well, even at large scale, even at over 100,000 people. But that's just consumption, right? And then how do you know if anybody is actually learning anything, right, from watching these video lectures? And when we're talking about tens of thousands of learners at once, the only way that we can practically assess learning is if we can do so in a way that, like, a computer can do it, in a way that can be automated. And if you're talking about knowledge acquisition, hard skills again, like accounting or programming, an automated quiz or test measures that just fine. But for soft skill development, it's a very different story. Assessing soft skills requires a human being, at least right now. You can take a quiz or a test to assess your knowledge about a soft skill, right? So if I'm learning about the FOG behavior model, I can take an automated quiz to see if I remember what the 3 elements that motivate behavior are. But if I want to know if I can apply those elements in a real life situation, that's something that's a lot harder for a non-human to assess. And then, of course, we want to go beyond assessment also, right? If we think about the development of soft skills, this is even harder to support through our current automated tools. Most of us, to truly develop a new skill, it's going to take us a couple of tries, right? And then we need guidance about where we should focus our efforts. What are we doing right? What are we doing that we need to change, and how do we need to change it? And maybe one day artificial intelligence will get us there, but it's not able to now. For now, that type of support is something that only a human being can provide. And that person needs to have an understanding of the skill and also experience applying that skill in a variety of settings if they're going to help us guide our development efforts. So to meet this need, we've developed a course facilitator model. So we don't have 160,000 participants in any of our online programs right now, but we do have a scale that is larger than our on-campus programs and requires a different approach. So in order to support both the scale we want to see and the expert level of feedback that's needed for true skill development, we've created a teaching team model where we select and retain people we call course facilitators. And the course facilitators partner with our faculty to support participants throughout their learning journey. The course facilitators combine 2 things. So they're familiar with the subject matter, like a teaching assistant. And then they're also familiar with the application of that subject matter in a variety of professional contexts, so like an executive coach. Many of our course facilitators hold MBAs from Stanford, and they have significant professional experience, often coaching or consulting experience as well. So the course facilitators then are able to serve as a bridge between our participants and our faculty. We hire a team that's specific to each course, And then each team meets regularly with faculty and staff. The course facilitators provide personal individual feedback to all of our participants. And in the LEAD program, they also contribute to message boards and they hold office hours. And this model has enabled us to be very, very effective in teaching soft skills. Our course facilitators are able to not only assess whether learners have mastered a given concept, but also are able to give them constructive and helpful feedback on how to apply that concept in their individual context and how to iterate and improve over time. And we've seen that this is very powerful. Participants in all of our online programs feel personally supported. And this increases their motivation to prioritize coursework even when they have a lot of demands competing for their time. We see very impressive completion rates, in fact, above 95%. But beyond just completion, our participants experience true meaningful growth and development. Let me pause at this point and see if we have any questions.
Yes, we've got a couple of questions, Audrey, but maybe we'll take one for now so that we can keep moving along. I'll combine a couple of the questions, actually. It's really around this course facilitator role. You know, how is this role similar or different to a traditional trainer that you would see in an L&D environment? And how does this scale compared to how you might scale trainers with in-person training?
Right. So I'm gonna start off by being a little bit dodging the question that I'm not intimately familiar with executive training. You know, at the university, we have our tenured faculty are the ones teaching our programs, right? And they're teaching frameworks that are based on research, and so it's a little bit different from a best practice trainer model. So I'm not sure that I can speak super well to put that contrast forward. But the first question was how Megan, Charlie, you wanted to know how they differ from that trainer, right? And so that, I guess, is interesting. Yeah. So our faculty, right, they do research into all of these things, motivation and leading teams and organizational behavior, and then they come up with frameworks that are based on years and years and decades of research. The course facilitators have both a broad experience working with executives, either as executives themselves and or right, being coaches or facilitators in that context. And they work with our faculty to understand the framework, right, and the research behind those frameworks. So they have that theory and they have the application. I don't want to rag on trainers at all because I don't know enough about that role, but my understanding is that that is a much more sort of specific topic that a trainer is gonna provide their audience.
No, that makes sense. But in terms of scaling, Audrey, do you have a sense of the ratio that's required, or just even how do you resource plan for the number of facilitators that you need?
Right. So it's great because it's a very scalable model. We've seen a tremendous amount of growth. So the first LEAD cohort had 85 participants, and the one that we just enrolled had over 530, right? And we can have, it depends on each of the courses, right? So some of the courses and the individuals too in their time, right? Each time we're going to run a course, we look at what we expect our enrollments to be, and we look at who we have that is an expert in that course and has worked with that faculty, and then match them up, right? But we do that each time individually for each of the courses to make sure that we're going to have enough attention given to each person on an individual basis.
All right, super. Thanks, Audrey.
No problem. I guess let's go on to our next myth. Another commonly held belief about online learning is that it can't provide a true valuable social experience the way that in-person education does. So it's been well established that in general, learning is best achieved as part of a community. We knew this even when we were creating the MOOCs, right? We tried to figure out how to incorporate social elements into online courses with things like message boards and other features that were designed to create this idea, this elusive idea, right, called engagement. And this largely failed. At first, nobody used the message boards and the other community tools at all. And so then many courses started to require learners to participate in them in order to get credit. But of course, you can't force people to be part of a social group. And so everybody figured out, how to put the check in the box, right? And they would add a comment or a +1 somewhere on the message board. But this didn't drive meaningful engagement, right? It was still extremely rare for learners to feel connected to each other or to get real value and real deeper learning from each other. And here's the reason: what the MOOCs miss is that you have to give learners a reason to intrinsically want to connect with each other, right? And then you have to continually reinforce, right, that keep making opportunities for the community to demonstrate its worth to its members and vice versa. And that isn't just a feature in an LMS, that's something that takes work. We decided when we were first conceiving of the LEAD program in 2014 that true community was going to be a characteristic that permeated the learning journey. And for us, that started actually with the application and selection process. So we don't have limits on the number of participants that we can accommodate in LEAD because of classroom size constraints, right? But nonetheless, we are very intentional and thoughtful in our approach to curating our cohort. We started with an application process that, in addition to the typical profile information, also includes a video interview and essays and a recommendation, right? And then once we've collected this information, we select our cohort, keeping in mind what the individuals have accomplished, what they can bring to the cohort, what they're poised to accomplish after their learning, what motivation about learning and application they're able to demonstrate to us, and what unique perspectives that they can bring to the group based on their background and experience. Then once we've selected the cohorts, we catalyze a sense of community from day one. For instance, in our on-campus program, we usually kick off the experience with a reception. And the reception accomplishes a couple of different things. We are able to welcome participants to campus. We can set the tone, right, and generate energy for the program. But we also create the opportunity for participants to be excited and impressed by each other, interested and intrigued by each other, interested in a group and in becoming a part of the group and in becoming a respected part of the group. So we're very intentional about recreating all of these elements in LEAD as well. We encourage introductions in our community space and see pictures of people's travel and their families. And then we have a synchronous virtual event that's shown here where we introduce the cohort to each other. We also have a multi-week orientation, which is mostly asynchronous in NovoEd. And that serves not only to introduce the participants to the platform, but also to introduce them to each other and to the idea of social learning, and includes multiple team building activities that help them get accustomed to the various tools, but also help them get accustomed to working together on a remote team. And then throughout the program, we continue to nurture that community with both curricular and extracurricular activities. So we have a number of collaborative exercises within each course of the LEAD program, and you can see one of those here. And these range from fairly straightforward group projects to things like debates and role plays and simulations. And then not only do we include the opportunities for the participants to work together on their assignments, but then we also have multiple opportunities for them to debrief the assignments together and to provide feedback to each other on their work. Then, in addition to the group learning activities, we also foster community outside of the courses as well. So on the next, there you go, on this slide, you can see some of the things that we offer. Some of these activities are things that we host directly from Stanford. For instance, we host periodic faculty talks about current events or other topics of interest. But many of the extracurricular aspects of LEAD are actually community driven by our participants. And these include things like clubs that are organized around various topics, as well as virtual and up until 2020, in-person meetups around the world. And again, these are grassroots activities. The ideas and the energy come from the lead community. And then it's our job at Stanford to feed into that energy and to encourage it and to celebrate it. And the care and effort that we put in absolutely is paying off. We truly believe that we've achieved social community-based learning that's on par with what you get in face-to-face experience. In some ways, actually, the community learning is more powerful because since we have an online program, we're able to draw from a more diverse set of participants that includes people who might not be able to travel to campus for a week for an in-person program. So there's more diverse perspectives that are available. And also the network that's created in an online program can be more durable over time because the bonds were created online. So everyone's already used to communicating and connecting through online modalities at distance, when they have other things going on in their life. So let me share what that looks like and what we've achieved in our LEAD program community. This is a map of the community to date. I think it's not fully updated with our most recent cohort, but you can see that we draw people from around the world. And we hear stories from our participants about their study groups that they're in together with folks from different continents, right? Where somebody is at work and somebody is making dinner and another person is getting ready to send his kids off to school. And they share with us how valuable this is to them to see all of these different perspectives brought together. And it's not just geographic diversity. Each of our cohorts also includes participants representing hundreds of companies and dozens of industries. And this enables a really great diversity across dimensions. And the diverse perspectives that our participants bring are maybe even felt more strongly and more vibrantly because the participants are still embedded in their job, right, and in their geography while they're interacting and learning with each other. And so this has created a really strong sense of community. We see very strong engagement during the program as well as after it ends. So our participants interact with each other on our not mandatory community platform. You see like almost all of them every month. But also nearly half of the participants who've completed the program are still continuing to engage in these discussions and groups on a monthly basis. Another exciting thing created by our LEAD community is called Meet a We. This is a multi-day event held on campus, and it is participant-generated and participant-led. We give them space and dinner one night, and they recruit a planning committee that plans for months and months, and then we see hundreds of participants from around the world come together for a number of days with a number of speakers that they recruit and activities that they organize, and it's been pretty incredible to see. And very validating, right? That we have in fact achieved this level of community. Let me pause there again in case we have any more questions.
Great, thanks, Audrey. Two questions for you. The one that I'll start with is there was a question around the duration of these programs, and perhaps you could speak to both LEAD, which is a more substantial program, as well as what you typically would offer for a custom program and some of the on-demand ones that are newer.
Great, yeah. So the LEAD program is designed to be completed in a year. It includes 9 different courses, and some of those are required, and then some of them are selected from the menu. And so that is a pretty significant lift, right, and significant commitment. The on-demand courses are much, much, much smaller, and those are 60 days is how long you get access, and you might actually go through it faster than that if you want to. The custom engagements that we see really are anywhere in between. I would say that 2 or 3 months is probably as small as we've done in order to get a meaningful asynchronous learning experience, and then I think a year is probably the longest that we've put together. But lots of things in the middle as well are possible.
Great. And the other question is really around, you referenced, Audrey, MOOCs that, were built for a specific purpose and, had a wide audience, but had pretty dismal engagement as a percentage. We're talking low single digits in terms of completions. And yet the programs you're describing here seem like they're at the other end of the spectrum. Not only are they, just substantially better, they're wildly better. Could you just summarize what factors you think kind of lead to that 90% plus engagement or the 90 to 95% plus completion rates that you see in your programs?
Sure. I think that the two things that I just talked about really are what drives those numbers and really are what make our programs distinct from something like a MOOC. So the first one is you have somebody paying attention to you, right? Somebody knows if you're not completing your assignment, and there's a lot of power in social accountability. And I think there's due dates, right? And there's penalties if you don't have something in by that due date because somebody's, needing to provide feedback. Whereas if there's a due date and something you're doing all by yourself, there's no accountability. There's no good reason driving that. There's no logic that you're going to go, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I need to get this done by Tuesday. So it's really easy to put something off over and over again, right? Almost all of us, I guess, have other stuff happening, right? Each day we have to prioritize, what am I going to get done? So what causes me to prioritize my online learning? Well, if there's a reason for me to get it done today versus tomorrow, right? And then I think that's the bulk of it, but I think the social component adds as well. Because as I said at the beginning, when you're really part of an online community, the same way you're part of a face-to-face community, you feel a felt obligation to that group, and you probably have a little bit of ego, right? You want to look good to that group. So that's a motivator as well that I think pushes people to get the most out of our programs. And I also think that the engagement that we're seeing from people who have completed the program has helped us, especially with LEAD, because they come back and they tell us, oh my goodness, like I did this learning and I applied it here in my job and I got these great results. And so that's motivating as well. I'm not just trying to get through this course to get the certificate and to put the check in the box. I want to actually really learn what's happening here because it's going to be meaningful to me in my career.
Got it. That makes sense. Thank you, Audrey.
Of course. Shall I go ahead?
Yes,
Great.
please.
All right. So the last myth that I want to talk about today is the idea that online learning is lesser than face-to-face learning. A lot of organizations we found, and the poll earlier this morning validated this. They're putting their in-person training or development efforts on hold instead of offering them in an online format. I think a lot of people feel like obviously face-to-face learning is better. And if you're not able to do face-to-face learning, maybe online learning might be an okay substitute. I come from an organization, as I said earlier, with a 5-year history of excellence in face-to-face learning. And so this is something that I hear around me a lot. And I think it's unfortunate. This myth not only affects the market, right, but in many cases, it also is affecting the people who are creating online courses and programs. This is something that's improved a bit over time, but you might still see it. The approach that a lot of people will take is to record a lecture, sometimes even in a classroom, and then to build the course experience in a way that's trying to copy what happened in that classroom-based course as much as they possibly can online. And this approach really misses the opportunities to structure learning in a way that's optimized for the unique benefits that an online platform offers. So it's absolutely true that online learning allows for more flexibility to the learner and is therefore more accessible to more people. And unfortunately, this is what some people end up thinking of as a trade-off of online learning, right? I'll get a lower quality learning experience, but I can do it at my own convenience. And absolutely that convenience is an important benefit of online learning, but I don't believe that it should really be thought of as a compromise or a trade-off, because there are aspects of online learning that can in fact provide a deeper learning than in-person programs can. Specifically, if you're trying to apply concepts that you learn in a situational way and in an iterative way in your actual job, that's not really possible in the classroom. So in our on-campus program, we employ a number of different simulations and experiences that are designed to bring the lecture-based learning to life. And the main reason that we have to do that is because our participants are at Stanford, right? And they're on campus, and therefore they're not in their jobs with their colleagues. And we've gotten very, very good at this. There are really great experiential learning activities that are included in our program. But I would argue that those are actually the compromises. And the unique promise of online learning is to enable a true learn and apply approach, right? And then to allow participants to reflect and improve and then learn and apply again. That is what we ought to view as the gold standard of experiential learning. So how do we do this? In all of our online courses, we favor a pedagogy that emphasizes in-context learning. So after exploring concepts with faculty, videos, and other content, participants have the opportunity to try out those concepts. And because the participants are still also employed in their full-time jobs, this gives us a really great opportunity to allow participants to apply learning not only in a carefully controlled simulation, as you would have to do even in the best experiential classroom-based learning, but instead to apply it on the job. For instance, in a communications course, you might review and edit an upcoming presentation that you need to give, or in a leadership course, you might try out a different setting and structure for a meeting with your staff and see how that affects the dynamics and interaction. And what I've shown here is a change management plan. And this is part of one of our lead courses. And it's designed to help participants think step by step through an upcoming change that they're attempting within their organization. And so in this way, the participants can learn a framework and apply it to an actual challenge they face on the job, and then reflect on the outcome and improve as part of their in-course learning. So the reality is, in many cases, we can drive better learning outcomes and stronger impact with online learning than we can with traditional executive education programs. And I want to note that these aspects of online learning that I've shared today that maybe are counterintuitive for some people, the facilitation model, social learning, and applied learning, they're not just independently helpful in driving impact. They work together, and each amplifies the effects of the other. So our course facilitators can help catalyze community interaction, and they can help participants make the most of the opportunities they have for iterative application at work. And then the participants are able to share their experiences applying concepts with each other, and benefit not only from practicing applying the frameworks in their context, but also hearing about their peers' experiences and challenges and takeaways as well. And of course, they can then help each other, right, and give feedback and suggestions and insights based on their diverse set of experiences and perspectives. And so they can share in each other's learnings and growth, building a stronger community. So we're extremely proud of the results we've achieved, combining expertly supported learning from our course facilitators, a true learning community, and this learn and apply approach to education. These are some metrics from a recent survey that went out across multiple cohorts of the LEAD program. You can see over 90% of our participants meet their learning goals, and specifically are able to apply the frameworks that they learn on the job, helping them to be more effective at work. And this results in, again, for more than 90% of our participants, the ability to drive meaningful change in their organizations and to create new career opportunities for themselves. And we think these are just very fantastic results, and that they're the direct results of the bold direction that we took with our online learning by offering a supported and community-based and application-oriented learning model. I hope that you also agree and that you have a little bit more insight into the true power and possibilities of online learning as an effective and impactful solution for professionals. If you're interested in learning more, you can please go ahead and visit our website, which you can see here, or feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is going to be on the final slide. So thank you so much, and I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
All right. Thank you, Audrey. A couple of questions. One is, someone asked about the range of technologies that you use in order to make this offering happen. Could you give an overview of that, please?
Of course. So NovoEd is our primary learning management system across the custom programs, the on-demand programs, as well as LEAD. Then with synchronous events, we have pretty much two platforms. We will do synchronous sessions, mostly in Zoom, but then the picture that you saw with the avatars is in a virtual world called Verbella. And we think that's a lot of fun for getting, it's hard to get to know new people in a Zoom or a webinar, right? In the virtual world, you can kind of walk up to different groups and move around and engage with each other. There are many different spaces, so that's a good complement for synchronous activities. And then the last thing that we have a couple of simulation tools that are used here and there. Most of those actually are either developed or have been kind of bastardized in-house. And then we do use, Facebook has a technology called Workplace that we use to catalyze the community in an extracurricular way for LEAD.
All right. Another question is around change management, Audrey. You talked about this interesting journey where GSB took a different path 6 years ago and decided to go high engagement, high touch. It's really counter to the trends at the time. How did you make that happen, given all the infrastructure and the history and the traditions and so forth that are there at Stanford and at the GSB?
Yeah, well, so I'm going to answer it in two parts. So the first way was that tradition and history and maybe stubbornness worked to our advantage. We actually, doesn't get mad at me, my boss proposed that we do something that looked a lot like what everybody else was doing and use the content that was most popular in our courses or in our on-campus programs, right, to develop online courses. And the various constituents, including our school leadership and our alumni, said no. The very beginning I talked about, we were going to see an authentic GSB experience online. That was what they told us we had to do, right? We're not going to dilute our brand in this way. You're going to start from something that is these things that are meaningful to our brand, right? It's going to be immersive and high touch. It's going to be very, very interactive. It's going to be very rigorous and really speak to what our faculty are known for. So that was kind of a mandate that pushed us to this bold direction that I'm really, really glad it did. Now then, to implement it was a lot harder. And I think that, because you're right, like doing something new in a university environment is not, and we, I don't guess we got everything we wanted right away, but we found a few people who were excited about what we were trying to do, right? And then we were successful with it, right? We got enough supporters, including Dean Salona at that time, right? We got enough supporters to help us move forward. And then once we proved to everybody that we could do this, right? Then we saw a lot better acceptance, for what we were trying to do around the school.
Yeah, just as an observation, it strikes me that you operated a little bit as a startup within your organization, and you really pulled together what you thought was the most innovative approach and found a way to get it piloted and establish some success.
That's right. We had a very small team to start with, but we had support, right, to kind of run our own path, and that was crucial.
Right. One follow-up to the technology question. You did show an interesting little VR application there for the initial orientation or gathering. Do you think that there's potential for VR in helping to develop soft skills? Have you seen things there that are exciting, or what do you think the future of that could be?
Yeah, so I love this question, and I think it's interesting. I think for soft skills, there's kind of a bar that you have to get over with the technology and the fidelity of the communication before the technology can help you with, can create a simulation that will be helpful for an in-person experience, right? And but one thing that I would say, so there's one of the famous courses in our MBA program is nicknamed Touchy Feely. It's a course in interpersonal dynamics, and the faculty for this course have been adamant that it is not something that could be translated into an online format. And this is something that I've taken as a little bit of a personal challenge, right? And now they're sort of stuck, and they have to try to figure out how to move this into an online format because we don't have a choice. And I would say that you don't need VR, right? I think that, and this is proof today, right? Most of our interactions, even pre-COVID, most of our work interactions happened in an electronically mediated format. So most of the soft skills that you're developing, you're implementing through some kind of technology, whether it's synchronous video or email, right? But you need to know how to communicate in electronic media as well as, if not, better than, how to communicate in a room with somebody. So I think, but I don't think I would not go yet to putting that kind of skill development primarily in VR, because I think there's a lot of nuance to body language and like facial expressions and things like this that are important if you're talking about establishing rapport or having empathy, right? There are, I think, the most promise that exists, and I haven't heard anything about this in actually a number of months, but was excited by the idea of if you can have an avatar and you have, through your camera, it can make the avatar, mimic your facial expressions in real time. And they have, for the video games, you have the gloves, right? And so you can move around the same way that you're moving around in real space. I think that would be a big key, and that might get us over that bar. But I haven't seen that done well enough in real time yet that I would recommend it for soft skills.
Sure, it's certainly something that has promise for the future, and it's going to be one of those things in technology where it's not great, and then all of a sudden a switch flips and it becomes amazing. So
exactly.
There's one question, a couple of questions that I wanted to sort of pick up and address, and that is, some of the more direct ramifications for corporate training for L&D departments that are putting together their own training. How can they adopt some of the lessons of what you're showing here? And my perspective on this is that a large organization needs a wide variety of training, different modalities, different approaches. Some of that's going to be compliance training and knowledge retention type training and fairly straightforward. There's efficient ways to deliver that. Some of it has to be completely self-paced and always available. Some of it should be accessible right on the job, so it might be incorporated into workflow, what people refer to as learning in the flow of work. But what the example that you're giving here, Audrey, is really that pinnacle in terms of the most difficult training to provide, and that is leadership training to senior leaders, right? We're not just talking about first line leaders and so forth. So it's the stuff that has the most nuance, that requires the most judgment and so forth. And so I would say that for organizations, whenever they have that those deeper, richer training needs, and by the way, this cuts across different topics besides leadership. It would include innovation, design thinking, customer centricity, business transformation, diversity, equity, and inclusion. A lot of these sort of higher level topics. These are ones that organizations could consider moving into a hybrid or blended environment. So yes, maybe there are some, self-paced asynchronous components there, but, organizations can start to incorporate some of the richer things that you're describing, Audrey. And the point is that not all of these richer things have to be in person, and they don't all have to be sitting on a Zoom together or facilitated in small groups. You can have some set of richer things happening with all the technology tools that we have nowadays, where you can get interaction, you can get discussion, you can get group collaboration, You can get practice, application, and feedback. And it just opens up the toolkit for blended. You know, blended used to have kind of 2 big tools in it. Now it has 5 or 6 different tools, several of which are very exciting. I think that's where, you know, corporate can really learn from some of the innovations that you're putting in place. But would love to hear if you have any additional comments on that based on, you know, your conversations with different corporate clients and so on.
Sure. I think you're exactly right. I think that the industry has done an amazing job of, you know, when I have to do my harassment prevention training, that's all self-paced, and that's now very actually engaging, and the improvements have gone a long way. The thing we're having to look at now, you know, given the pandemic, is this training that we can't wait to train our leaders, right? We can't wait to develop our leaders. They need their skills now more than any other time. So you have to figure out, how can I do that if I can't do things in person? And I think that the physical co-presence and even the you know, synchronous time is not what's important. What's important is that somebody is helping you, right? Somebody, whether it is your peer or whether it is your manager or whether it is your HR team or whether it is an external facilitator, somebody needs to come and say, you know, hey, Audrey, good job on this. What I would try to do next time, work in this area, right? That kind of feedback is really important. And then, you know, helping the individual learner feel motivated. And to the extent that can be, you know, you're going to show your learner why they want to learn this, instead of telling them that they have to, right? If you have a carrot for them instead of a stick with their learning, I think that's a lot more powerful for more nuanced soft skills development.
Yeah, I think that's right. Absolutely. All right. So, you know, one question that I have for you, Audrey, is what has the reception been to this program, not just within Stanford or GSB, but among the larger executive education community, among your peers, among your industry, broadly speaking? How have people reacted to it, responded to it? What are their thoughts? Are they looking to jump on the bandwagon? Do they have different perspectives? What have you perceived?
Sure. So I think that, you know, I think that I was lucky, right, that I had this mandate that we talked about, and I was given the green light to do something that was counter to what the market was doing. And because of that, we developed this very immersive, high-touch offering with LEAD. And then we could take things away from that offering if we needed to customize it for an organization, or most recently when we've launched our OnDemand courses. And the other of our peer schools are kind of moving in the opposite direction, and I think that's harder. So 2 things that are different. One is like I said, they're starting from something that looked like a MOOC, and they're incrementally trying to get to something that looks more and more like where we started. And I think that's a slower path because, as we pointed out, all of us face resistance to change within a university. And the second thing is that we developed LEAD in-house. You know, we worked with NovoEd for the LMS and these kinds of things, but the content was all developed at the GSB. Our GSB faculty worked with GSB staff in GSB studios to create the content, and with GSB instructional designers, right, to put it together into impactful courses. And so I think we are a little bit, I think our peers, right, mostly went with a more partner path. So they didn't develop that capability and familiarity in-house. So now that they're having to push everything online, they're a lot more stuck with, you know, live online, synchronous Zoom adaptations from their in-person programs. And they're in a position that makes it more challenging for them to integrate those 2 things together, right, in a blended way, which is probably, you know, the optimal solution for most executives, is to have some amount of synchronous learning and then have that be complemented with a bunch of asynchronous learning, right? And that's a lot harder for them than it's been for us because of that partnership decision.
And I think that's a great sort of higher level point as well that is applicable across organizations, and that is whatever it is that people are doing and developing or offering to their organization, you also need to think about the capabilities that you're building and the options that you're creating for yourself in the future. And, you know, on one extreme, if you rely on other partners and vendors to do everything for you, then have you built that capability? In other scenarios, though, maybe you need to invest to create some infrastructure, get the reporting and analytics and, you know, all the security elements right in order for you to have a platform to grow on in the future. So we should all be thinking about that, not just how do I deliver the best thing for this particular current learning need, which is obviously crucial, but how do we set ourselves up to be even more capable for the kinds of things that we want to do on a going forward basis. I do note that we are out of time, and I wanted to thank you, Audrey, for sharing your incredible story with us. I feel like there's just a ton of tips in that. And I do want to reshare my screen here and just provide some contact information. So we've got your email address here that's listed. If anyone's interested in learning more about NovoEd, you can reach us at info@novoed.com. And we have a QR code here. If you're interested, you can snap a photo of that QR code with your phone's camera, and you'll get a link to our next webinar that's coming up very soon with Josh Burson and NovoEd CEO Scott Kinney. With that, I wanted to thank everyone. I hope you had a great day, and hope that you have a great day, and appreciate you joining us for this time. Thank you, and bye-bye.